Hello and welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and it's Christmas Eve. It is time for A Christmas Carol. There are many different versions of Christmas Carol done by Patrick Stewart, the Muppets, and this one, obviously, plenty of other ones that are not on Disney Plus. Can't think of them right offhand, but this one's Jim Carrey in no less than 9 roles. This is computer generated CGI 3D. It came out in 2009, so it's an hour and 37 minutes long. In 2009, that was the year of Avatar and the birth of the new generation of 3D films. And this, by the year's end, of course, I don't know if it was originally always going to be in 3D, but they certainly upgraded it into 3D by the time it was released. And it certainly does take advantage of certain 3D elements. So I imagine they had always planned for it to do it. But this is all motion capture, very much taking advantage of Jim Carrey's elastic qualities, not just in facial expression, but his movement and everything else. He he's Ebenezer Scrooge. He is using the dialogue that we read in the original Dickens classic. It's not modernized, like the Muppets. As much as I love the Muppets version, it's more modern dialogue and talking. This one fully takes advantage of the eras of the original dialogue. I don't know how else to say it. The good talking of that time. So there's a lot of the old and a lot of the new. And in 2009, yes, we've had 3D films before, animated films before, but this at the time was this is pretty intensive. And it's yes, I will admit that some of the faces that aren't Jim Carrey are a little bit plastic, a little bit flat. They haven't the animation for them hasn't aged as well. They certainly spent a lot of time focusing on Jim Carrey's performance, not a doubt. That and Gary Oldman, who plays both Bob Cratchit and Marley, the ghost of Marley, anyway. Jim plays not just Scrooge, but every other version of himself throughout his life. When he's a little boy, to a teenager, to a young man who's working as an apprentice, as a slightly older man who is courting a woman who played by Robin Wright Penn. Robin Wright. She and then he. We know the story. He chooses money and work over a wife and a family. So he was hoping, I think, to marry her for her money. And when she lost that, there was no longer much interest. But yeah, there's certain elements to this story that I kind of forget because we often get the abridged version, the quick and dirty versions, the Tiny Tim, the Three Ghosts, the Change of Heart, Get the Biggest Turkey, all that kind of stuff that we know over and over again that are the basic elements of the Scrooge story. We know, the term Scrooge has, you have to understand, before Dickens' classic, didn't mean anything miserly or, bah humbug. It didn't mean anything until this story came along. But today, if you say the word Scrooge, you know exactly what type of person that is if you describe them as such. So it's a testament to the longevity, the creativeness, and the history of this story. It's been redone so many times. This is done in a way that, for me, I thought I had seen this before. Maybe I had seen the trailer for it when going to the movies so many times that I thought I saw it. And I don't think I did. If I did it, somehow it didn't leave an impression, but it has now. The animation primarily for all the sweeping camera shots that move through and move through this town and the buildings, the interiors, the set design, all just so detailed, so beautiful. And yes, it's nothing compared to what we have in 2020, but for 2009, it's an impressive display. It's like a $200 million film. It wasn't cheap. I don't think it really, without a foreign box office, it didn't reach its potential for some reason. But I don't know. It's got a lot of good elements to it beyond just the animation and obviously the classic story. I think a lot of people thought that, you know what, I've seen that story a million times. Why would I go spend another $10, $15 in theater to see it again? Maybe. And maybe Jim Carrey wasn't as big of a draw. And the idea that the 3D animation maybe wasn't interesting enough to them. Maybe thought it was a little creepy. There's that whole, why can't I remember the train thing again with Tom Hanks like I did yesterday? Polar Express, Polar Express, Polar Express. Those faces to me, it's so plastic. It's so plastic. It doesn't do anything. Yes, maybe the story is great, but it's an early era of that animation, and this is a humongous improvement on that. But again, it all comes down to the actors beneath the motion capture. We have Colin Firth in here as well, who plays his nephew Fred, and I told you Robert Wright Penn. I told you Gary Oldman plays a great Bob Cratchit. He does a nice. He's essential. I think what I really enjoy is him turning the camera at the very end and sort of capping the story off after receiving the news from from Scrooge that he's getting a raise. It's oh, did I spoil that? Sorry. This story is only a couple hundred years old, or maybe not a couple hundred, but still, it's really old. Who else was in this? We have Bob Hoskins as Fezziwig. Sorry, Fezziwig. So yeah, it's a great cast. It's great animation, and honestly, this almost counts as a horror film. It is the scariest version of A Christmas Carol that I've ever seen. I mean, yes, the other ones. I mean, honestly, you're dealing with a story with at least four ghosts, and the specter of death as one of them. It also plays as a comedy because there are a number of elements in this. Obviously, when you have Jim Carrey and his expressions, and he's playing so many different characters, each of the ghosts, especially the ghost of Christmas Present, he's almost unrecognizable, but you still see it. You'll still see it in his eyes. He's very jolly. He's very festive, and he's none of the ghosts' departures from him end well, obviously. They because this is digital, because this is animated, they have so much. They've taken advantage of the opportunity to do so much they couldn't do if this was just a real live action film. Yes, Jim Carrey would still be as animated, but he'd almost look. I don't know. It wouldn't be the same. Yes, he can animate this hell of it himself in any scene he's in, but this adds a sort of more crotchetiness. They can make him lankier. They can make his knuckles all. There's no makeup work that needs to be done. There's no. They can de-age him however they choose, and you go, okay, I can forgive that because it's even if it doesn't look realistic, and maybe different versions of him look more plastic, because that's the limitations of the animation, or it is fully animated. You can suspend your disbelief for that. So it's kind of the animation part of this is essential in making this so impactful. Honestly, you could. I want to say you can just turn off the sound and it still would be mesmerizing to watch in many cases. But the sound is so important to this. There's elements where it's there's no dialogue and it's just him reacting to what's going on, and the sound I've found is is even if you closed your eyes, you still would know what was going on, and it it would be unsettling at times. This is not your normal Christmas Carol to watch with the little ones. This is more one to watch with the teenagers or the junior high ones, and that age. It's fine. It's a PG film, so there's nothing creepy or overly violent at all. I mean, not violent at all, but I mean, the Christmas Carol story, and I'd almost, yeah, it's just it ends on a happy note, but still the trials that he goes through on Christmas Eve are, how they depict it is just so good, so freaking creepy, and there's action sequences to really move this thing along. He's shrunk down, very small. It's how they move him through different scenes. The transitions are incredible, but it's also how he moves through different scenes to experience these different people, how they reflect upon him, especially when he's dead. His housekeeper goes home bragging to her husband that she's stolen stuff from his house after he was dead, because the old man's died alone. Nobody could do anything for him, and nobody would want to. And you know what? He was a miser anyway. Let's take what I could. And he's just as small as a mouse, and he's sort of witnessing this in their home as they talk about what an awful person he was. He feels very small. He couldn't feel smaller at that point, and there's just, I like it a lot. I think this is one of my favorite versions. Yes, the Muppets is hard to beat with Michael Caine, but for impactful, just there's a darkness to this that is probably one of the best reflections of the original story, without being too precious about it. There's some very regal versions of this, like Patrick Stewart or Patton. I keep wanting to say Patton, what the guy who played Patton. Oh, why can't I say his name? You know who I'm talking about if you've seen all those movies. George C. Scott. If you've seen all those, you know that it's a dramatic gravitas that is fully reliant upon the actor and the space he's in to make it happen. This is not so much just about Jim Carrey, even though he fills that space incredibly. But yeah, this is bouncing comedy off of horror in the middle of a Christmas story. And I think this is a really good mix. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to mark this down as something I haven't seen before. So, because this feels really new to me. So, I'm going to tell you about what I'm going to do tomorrow. Now, this is going to be something a little bit different. It's a little bit passive. You can watch it, but you don't really have to watch it. You can experience it. Yes, we're going to go to the land of Frozen, and we're going to take in, with everything else that might be going on, we're going to put on the Arendelle Castle Yule log. Yeah, there's other things, like a YouTube and other video channels and other things. Netflix probably has some too. But for Disney Plus, they have a Yule log that takes place in the world of Arendelle, where Elsa and Anna and their castle, and it's just, all it is, it's 3 hours of a burning log. That's it. There's no Olaf showing up going, "Hey, how you doing?" There's nobody. Anna doesn't dance in there and start kissing the boyfriend, and why can't I say his name? Sven. No, that's the moose. Elsa doesn't sing "Let It Go." There's no Christmas carols. It is literally, I scanned it. I scanned it already just to move the mouse along there to make sure there's nothing that shows up. I'm going to still put it on all 3 hours of it, and it's going to play in the background, probably on my tablet while I do other stuff, or I might just lay there and fall asleep with the sound of crackling fire. You can do it too. But yeah, you might get tired of it after 2 minutes, or you can watch the whole thing. But I am actually going to have it on for 3 hours, so I can say I did it. It takes really nothing away from me. I can probably play Cyberpunk 2077 while it's on, so who knows. I don't have Cyberpunk 2077. But still, who knows what I'll get for Christmas. So yeah, Arendale's Castle Yule Log on Christmas Day. So I will see you tomorrow on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Merry Christmas.